Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. It's been a few weeks of the Three Kingdoms DLC, so for this video, we're going to check out how the new civilizations are doing in terms of balance, according to the stats. While I'd say overall the devs have been getting better at the initial balance of new civs over time, needless to say, it looks like some buffs and nerfs are in order for at least 3 of the 5 new civilizations. And you'll see what I mean if this is your first look at the new online win rates. Just a note about the stats we'll be looking at. I know there's some natural uncertainty about how much you should trust them in the first month after release for really 2 reasons, one of which I think is valid. The first argument is that sample sizes are too small this early on, which is not actually a concern. Not only do we have over 300,000 1v1 ranked games already since the new DLC, sample size is pretty easily accounted for by keeping an eye on the confidence intervals when interpreting the numbers. The way these work is essentially we're assuming there's a true win rate for each civilization, and given the number of games played and the type of data this is, 95% of the time the interval should include the true win rate that we're after. The greater the number of games, the tighter that interval gets, and at this point for most civs is down to plus or minus 1%, which isn't bad at all, and it's only when you start looking at 1900 plus ELO games that you run into sample size problems, as those are still at more like plus or minus 5%. Technically, it's a bit of a stats faux pas to then say there's a 95% chance a true win rate falls within any specific confidence interval for a civilization, as tempting as that is, since that sort of implies the true win rate has a probability distribution, like what's being shown. In reality, the true win rate is something fixed, and either inside the interval or it's not, so we shouldn't talk about it like it's a probability, though this is a bit of a technical point. I bring it up because this fact is related to the more valid concern we have to keep in mind looking at this data, which is that it assumes a static true win rate for each civilization, which may not be the reality. With players figuring out how good brand new unique units and bonuses are on the fly, along with how to counter those new units, the true win rate may be a moving target. Confidence intervals unfortunately tell us nothing about that, which is where interpreting stats becomes at times more art than science, and we don't want to be overly confident just because our confidence intervals look great. With that caveat out of the way, we'll take this data with a grain of salt and check out how the new civs appear to be doing so far, as well as speculate on why we're seeing certain trends. We'll start with the Khitans, who are absolutely crushing it out of the gate, being up there with Cumans as one of the strongest civilizations initially, at least in the definitive edition version of the game. For context, here are all the civilizations ranked from highest to lowest win rate this patch, where you can see the Khitans are kind of in a class of their own. They're sitting around a 59% win rate, going up to 60% on Arabia, though the map hardly seems to matter, being above average on all of the most popular ones. They also have a positive result against all civilizations head-to-head so far, which even just by random chance, you'd think would have at least one losing matchup. In addition to that, they're doing better and better at higher ELO ratings, which I know some people put a little extra weight on, and they're above average at all game lengths, but particularly seem to win a lot in late feudal to early castle age. This is a dramatic picture we're painting, so what makes them this incredibly good? With results like this, it's probably a few things going on, but the main suspect is their pastures, which are cheaper to start up than farms and don't require mills, essentially combining aspects of the Khmer and Teuton farm bonuses together in one. They then keep more villagers close to the town center for safety, and their efficiency doesn't drop away like farms as you double them up. So in most ways, they're just strictly better, even before getting to the fact that they seem to generate a little more food than farms, at least when the villagers aren't bugging out. Khitans then have super synergizing bonuses, with faster working shepherds and creating scouts faster, which then get double the attack upgrades on those for a great scout rush. In Castle Age, you then have Steppe Lancers with plus 4 attack, Light Cav with the same thing plus faster training, and Heavy Cavalry Archer as an option, all of which build off that very strong economic backbone provided by pastures. Interestingly, some of their best matchups are Cavalry civs, where Khitans having camels certainly doesn't hurt. 100% this civ has to be nerfed in the next balance patch, which could be as simple as taking away the plus 10% food bonus from shepherds so their economy kicks in a bit later, or the devs may have a totally different idea in mind, but in the meantime, enjoy Khitan's total dominance while it lasts. Next up, let's talk about the Wei, which so far seem like the Khitan's mirror universe twin, as Wei are also a cavalry civ, but are dead last in ranking, becoming progressively worse at high elo, and being crushed especially in the early game, opposite to Khitans. So why the complete inversion? First off, the Wei's eco bonus is fairly delayed, giving you at least 2 free villagers, but not until you've both hit feudal age, plus have researched double bit axe and horse collar. So it's just a slower version of the Bengali's free 2 villagers for each town center when aging up. You could argue their bonus encourages early gold and stone mining, where you get 4 villagers in feudal, but there's always a risk with that early investment putting you behind in military and your enemies snowballing you, at least on open maps. Their other 2 bonuses then kick in during Castle and Imperial Age, and the general perception is their Xianbei Raider isn't good enough to carry them in the mid-game. I get the sense the devs may have been a little gun-shy after the Kipchaks were so strong at release, and were more cautious this time around with that unit in particular. The late game doesn't actually seem too bad though, with Tiger Cavalry, extra high HP Hai Guang Cavalry, and cheaper traction trebuchets, and it just feels like they need one more early game bonus to help stabilize. Given Hai Guang Cavalry just feel like better knights in many ways, I don't think their low win rate does justice to how little of a tweak they might need to turn things around. Next up, let's take a look at the Jurchens. This is the gunpowder focus of the new civs, with the Grenadier and all the extra explosions. They're also sitting right near the bottom, ranking 48th out of 50 so far. Looking into their stats, a few similar patterns jump out, with a declining win rate at higher elo and a brutal mid-game, though as you might expect from a gunpowder civ, they do bounce back a bit if they can hang on until Imperial Age. They seem to do slightly better on closed maps, but are just underperforming in general at the moment. Their eco bonus is simply animals not decaying, giving them a bit of early food and delaying farms, but then don't have an economy bonus once animals run out, plus a pretty limited tech tree. Mounted units attacking 20% faster seems strong on paper, which is part of why I think they weren't given a good eco bonus. And that extra early food plus faster attack on scouts leads to a very nice opening, no question. Their late game also has a few good options, but so far between their weak mid-game economy and tech tree, they just seem to struggle particularly against archer and camel civilizations in Castle Age. If for no other reason, because of how they're doing at high elo, I expect they will get a mid-game buff at some point soon. Moving on, we have the Shu, which are the archer-focused of the Three Kingdoms civs, hanging out at number 8 overall by win rate, so doing quite well, but not overpowered. The big story for this civ is they're absolutely crushing Castle Age. Their bonuses, as a refresher, are some passive food while chopping wood, and a nice power spike in early Castle Age with discounted crossbow as well as bodkin arrow and thumb ring. Don't overlook their faster moving siege as well, helping particularly in mangonel fights. I haven't looked at it in depth yet, but the War Chariot at the Siege Workshop is so far a divisive unit, getting mixed reviews with some players suggesting it's too weak. Not that Shu seem to need much help, to be fair. The White Feather Guard is low-key a pretty solid unit for its part, giving them something cheap that counters cavalry and tanks a ton of shots from skirmishers for example, which pairs nicely with their archer focus. They feel like a pretty easy civ to understand, with terrible cavalry, but pretty decent at everything else. And so far the stats paint them as the most well-balanced of the new civs, being the only one of the 5 that didn't immediately land in the top or bottom 3 so far. Of course, to round out the Three Kingdoms civs, we then have the Wu, which are the infantry-focused of the Three Kingdoms civs and are doing great, at this point number 3 by overall win rate. Like the Shu, they're doing their best in games ending during Feudal or Castle Age, but then fall off a bit in Imperial. You really can't talk about this civ without bringing up the Jurchens Swordsman, which gives them an immediate response to archer civs the moment you hit Castle Age, and is at least part of their story for success in those 20 to 30 minute long games. Outside of that one unit though, their bonus giving them free food for every military building leads to some interesting stable or archery range plays, with infantry then having HP regeneration throughout the game being solid for men-at-arms openings and beyond. They're doing well on 4 lakes, as you'd expect from the most naval-focused of the new civs, with the 4th highest win rate on that map this month, but their flexibility is ultimately helping them perform on pretty much any open map. They have a strong opening with nice power spikes and a good variety of late game units, including arguably the most powerful of the traction trebuchets once they start firing 3 projectiles after unique tech. The HP regeneration bonus feels maybe a little too strong for me, and I wouldn't be shocked if Jurchens Swordsman lost 1 Pierce Armor down the road, but this isn't really a balanced nitpick video, and it's just meant to be an overview of the stats so far. That'll do it for this one though, as a little summary of where the civilizations have landed. With a couple in the top 3 and a couple in the bottom 3, some balance changes are clearly coming at some point. To be clear, having a huge spread in win rate for new civilizations like this isn't unprecedented, as the Dynasties of India civs also were split between the very top and bottom of the rankings just after release, though are much better now. Either way, the stats are fun to look at, and Khitans are the only one I would label a high priority fix, as outside of them and arguably the Wei or Jars, all the civs are looking pretty solid balance-wise overall, and I think the devs deserve some credit on that front. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.